So we're in the Hallberg-Rassy factory with Magnus Rassy. This is an in-build 370, I think it's number 4, is that right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so we're going to look at all the stuff you can't see from the interior of a finished boat. So the bones, the substructure, all of that kind of stuff. Magnus is going to talk us through it on this unfinished hull number 4. So we saw on the 370 the bow split with the integrated bow roller, and that's where you tack on your code 0. So it's clearly quite a high load structure. We didn't see the boat without it. Magnus, talk us through what the bowsprit is and how it attaches.
The structural strength of the bowsprit is a stainless bowsprit that will be attached here. And then we have a GRP cover to make it look nice, but the structural strength is from the stainless bowsprit on this 370.
And is this reinforced in some way? Is it heavier than the rest of the hull?
Yes, it's solid laminate and thicker to carry the high loads.
Okay. So a lot of the stiffness of Hallberg-Rassy comes from this whole deck joint, which is legendarily stiff.
Yes.
Magnus, can you talk us through it?
Yes, the hull and the deck are laminated together from the inside at an early stage. And in that way we get a really waterproof boat. It cannot leak in this section. It gets torsionally stiff, and we can access to do so when we do it early in the construction phase. And all the rest of the interior comes into the normal opening in the boat, and the same goes for all the tanks and for the engine, and that means for servicing you can get it out the same way it got in.
Okay. And so how else is this? It's laminated.
Laminated on the inside, yes.
Okay.
And
how
then
else
we
is
have
it?
a cap rail over here, either in PU teak, like shown here, or in real teak. And then for the stanchions, we have a T-shaped solid fitting that we bolt on to this part and have a stanchion on top of it. Yeah.
Okay. Talk me through the process again. Here we see the T in position.
Yes.
How is that set where it is? How is that fixed?
Inside the tow rail there is a metal part cast in, and then we drill holes so we can screw and thread those screws into the metal in the tow rail, and that gives a very strong base for the stanchion. And finally we put a cap rail, either real teak as here or PU teak over, so it looks nicely.
Okay, and the cap rail is drilled through and then set over.
Yeah.
So one of the big developments in Hallberg-Rassy has been the addition of hull windows, which makes such an advantage in terms of natural light inside. They really sort of kind of transform the space. Likewise, the bigger windows on deck. What kind of structure am I looking at now?
Well, first we have a thick skin outer laminate, and then we have 20 millimeters of insulation, PVC, closed cell foam, and then we have a thin inner laminate. So all this is this thick. And here we put a tempered glass port light, hull port, that we glue in place, and the glass is tempered glass, so it doesn't scratch over time. And every hull port light is a weakness of the boat that we need to compensate in another way. And that we do with those stiffeners, horizontal stiffeners and vertical stiffeners, all the way from the keel area up to the deck.
And that just limits any kind of flex at all?
Yes.
And what does it take to break one of these windows? Is that even possible?
A lot. We haven't even succeeded when we tried.
Okay. So you'd associate more traditional boats with those kind of partial bulkheads that sort of close off the interior a bit, sort of ring frames up here. This doesn't have them. This is a kind of open space. And Magnus is going to tell us why.
The difference to previous designs of this size is that there is not only a hull stiffener below the sole boards, but pulled all the way up to the deck. You see the stiffeners here and on the port side. And we also have hull stiffeners that way, from the forward end of the boat to this part. And that stiffens up the boat so much that we are no longer needing any high bulkheads to stiffen up the boat. And that lowers everything, that makes everything more open in the interior.
And the chain plates, that's obviously more heavy structure to bear the loads.
Yes, that's the lowers, and that's the top shrouds, and both are anchored here very solidly. And inside it's marine grade plywood as a core.
Okay. And is it the same for the stiffener, or is that?
No, that's solid in the walls, but inside it's air.
Okay, so this is a box structure.
Yes, a box structure.
Okay. And the stiffeners, they're also a box structure?
Yes, except here at the mast support. Here is a steel beam that is cast into the hull stiffener.
So what is this? You said there was something around it. So
Yes.
it's the steel beam, but you can't laminate a steel.
You cannot laminate steel or any metal with laminate because it doesn't stick together. But if you have a beam, a steel beam, and you cast it into the hull stiffener with polyester, a mix of polyester and fibers, you keep it in place and it cannot move.
Okay. And the ends of the beam?
Yeah, they are welded together, so there are not open ends, there are closed ends, so that makes everything much torsionally stiffer.
Okay. And this?
It's a metal mast support. It's a deck step mast and steel support here and a steel beam below. So it's very strong.
So one thing you've both noticed on these boats is there's like zero condensation. There's none. And that talks to really decent insulation. So Magnus, can you talk us through the insulation in the hull and in the deck?
It's Divinycell, a closed cell PVC foam that doesn't absorb water and insulates very well against heat and cold and noise. And the insulation goes from the deck level down close to the keel area. 1.2 meter around the keel is solid laminate. The rest is insulated. And the same in this aft section, down to the hull stiffener, it's insulated all the way up to the deck level. And the engine room area is solid laminate.
And how thick is that Divinycell?
20 millimeters.
20 millimeters?
Yes, so it's quite a good insulation.
Okay, and what's the thickness of gel coat you have either side, or the laminate you have either side?
It varies a lot depending on where it is. Some areas are really, really thick, like in the keel area. Is much thicker than elsewhere, and we have an advanced calculation where the loads are, and we beef up the laminate where the highest loads are, and we have less laminate where it's not needed.
Okay, and you also have insulation in the deck?
Yes.
In the coach roof?
Or horizontal areas in the coach roof and in the deck are also insulated.
And is that again 20 mil, or is that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why it's so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's not the whole explanation. Good insulation is an important part of it, but also the ventilation. We have ventilators on deck bringing fresh air into the boats, and we have holes in the boards of the berths. We have ventilation slats at all the lockers. So everything is well ventilated. Good rotation of air. Also important.
And we saw on the deck of the 370 those cable runs that just take the line straight from the mast under deck.
Yes.
This is the story, right?
Exactly. These are the channels for that, for halyards and for trim lines. And here there is a lead block which will be accessible for service from the inside.
And we also see the jib tracks there.
Yes, correct.
And that's, so what we're looking at, so it's bolted every 10 mil, is that?
Something like that, yes.
Okay, and what's this?
That's a reinforcement. We don't want to have foam insulation where we have high loads. So there we have solid laminate.
Right. Okay, so there's no insulation there, that's just, and it's, so I can take off the deck head and I can get at this if I need to replace the track or anything?
Yes, you can remove the ceiling in this part of the 370 to access that part, yeah.
Why put the tanks here?
To keep them in center of gravity, in the center of the boat and as low as ever possible. And those are 2 of the, in total, 5 tanks, all located here in the center of the boat.
Okay, and there's a lot of pipes and...
Yes, it's more connection than you might think. There is to the engine, return from the engine to the heater, return, you have inspection pump, so you can pump up the contents that is in the lower end of the tank. If you have water or sediment in the tank, that's always heavier than the fuel, which is lighter. So you have a pump in the engine room, and when you pump until you get clear fuel, you know that the whole tank is okay.
Okay. And I couldn't help but notice we got bits of tape measure over here.
Yes.
Can you tell me why you're chopping up tape measures?
It's simply a template to keep exactly the right distance. That's a way to keep 5 millimeter distance between the ceiling and the panel, and that keeps the boat very silent, because here when we build the boat it's very dry, and when you have moist it expands, and if you have 5 millimeter air around from the beginning it's always a very quiet boat.
So another big change since you took over at Hallberg-Rassy 21 years ago, is that all the boats are now twin rudder.
Yes, correct.
What was the thinking behind that? Why?
It gives benefits in all areas. It's better for living space inside, it's better for storage, and it's a lot better for sailing performance, in particular sailing upwind. And that's because a contemporary hull shape is much more symmetric in the waterline, no matter if the boat sails upright or at little heel or a lot heel. We have an illustration here that shows it. It is a symmetric waterline in a contemporary design, and in an older design with more narrow transom you have a much more curvature to the lee side, and the windward side is much straighter. Not hard at all to understand which one is more efficient through the water. Of course this one, the contemporary, that is more symmetric in the shape.
So because of the underwater profile, the older boat would tend to round up, so you find yourself fighting that at the wheel?
Yes, and it's not as efficient through the water. It's less water resistance with a hull that has a symmetric waterline. And it's also easier control, because with the contemporary hull shape you have twin rudders and always at least one rudder blade completely down into the water. So you always have full control in a much better way than with a single rudder.
Which would be ventilating at the top, presumably?
Yes, exactly. Because you would lift the single rudder out of the water.
Okay. A lot of people worry about a twin rudder hitting something.
It doesn't. It's not wider than the hull. The hull side is always the widest part of the hull, and this kind of rudder has two bearings, and both bearings are self-aligning. So even if you have a lot of load, even if it's slightly bent, you can still steer it easily, and not a lot of resistance, because the bearing is self-adjusting. And if you would have a skeg, you would have 3 bearings. And 3 bearings sounds better than 2, but it's the other way around. If you have 3 bearings, it's not a matter if it's out of line, but how much out of line. So it's always jamming a bit more, it's more resistance, and you cannot make it self-adjusting. So it's always a better solution with a contemporary hull and twin rudders.
Okay. And what kind of, so where the rudder stock comes into the boat,
Yeah.
what kind of structure have you got there?
In all through hull fittings or shafts or whatever, we have solid laminate. So we don't have sandwich construction around that area, a thick solid laminate.
And how thick are we talking?
It's that thick.
Okay.
So it's really thick.
So there are some developments in other models, like the 69, a lot of work went into that.
Yeah.
There were innovations in that that have translated into other models.
Yes.
We can see it here on the 370. Do you want to talk us through it?
Yeah, it's a more efficient keel than ever before. It's a LED bulb and it's a steel blade that can be made a lot thinner than a LED blade, so it's much more efficient through the water.
Okay, and previously, how have your keels attached to the boat?
Previously we had a GRP part going down here and the keel bolted to that. And now we have a flange up here, which means we have double rows of keel bolts here, all the way to the very aft end of the keel and the very front of the keel. And here, where you really need it the most, it's most important. And if you have a narrow bilge here, you don't get access to put it where you really want it, but a bit forward, and only one. Here we can put 2, one on each side, all the way. So this is a stronger construction, simply, and more efficient for sailing as well.
And if you were to run aground?
You should always avoid it, but it's better to have a strongly built boat than that you have here.
But it's also spread across so much.
Yes, yes. If you hit something, you spread the forces better in this way because the flange is much wider than it would be with a traditional GRP down bilge. And still you have a proper bilge above the keel of 35 centimeters, 1 foot 2 inches. So it's still a proper bilge.
So you spoke about the symmetry of the hull at any angle of here.
Yes.
What's Freyr's done here, tell us?
Well, it's a more contemporary hull shape, which means there is a wider section in the aft part of the hull, and at heel and also at upright, it's more efficient through the water because it's more symmetrical waterline than a traditional hull shape. And at the same time, you have more redundancy. 2 is always better than 1, and you have less loads on a twin rudder boat than on a single rudder boat.
Okay, so that means if you're steering, it's just finger light?
Yes, it's very light. And that is easy for you as a helmsman to steer the boat, and it's easier for the autopilot, more effortless sailing. You use less power when steering with an autopilot, and you get less wear. It's better for the loads of the shaft, of the bearings and everything.
So there you go, that's our review done. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Yachting Reviews. Follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and you need not miss another one of these golden moments.